Is Mr. Beast's Squid Game recreation illegal? What's going on, y'all? AttorneyTom here. For anybody who doesn't know, popular YouTuber Mr. Beast recently released a video where he recreated the events of the Netflix show Squid Game. And with this almost exact recreation of Squid Game, many online have been wondering if Mr. Beast has exposed himself to potential severe legal liability. So that is the ultimate question we are going to try to answer in this video. Make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to give my final determination of just how much trouble I think Mr. Beast is in. And I say we because, as many of y'all know, I am a catastrophic personal injury lawyer. I'm not an intellectual property lawyer, nor am I an expert in copyright. So I brought on somebody who is. And let me introduce you to my friend, Richard from Virtual Legality. Richard, take it away.
Hey, Tom, and thanks for the introduction. Yes, in Virtual Legality, we like to talk about copyright infringement to a pretty significant extent, primarily because it comes up so often in people asking questions about popular culture, stealing ideas, stealing video game concepts. Now, a lot of your audience might already know that you can't copyright just the idea at play in something like Squid Game, but you can most certainly copyright the expression. And if we look at the Copyright Act itself, the copyright holder, be it Netflix, the production studio, wherever that copyright might live, has the exclusive right, at least in the United States, and this will vary by jurisdiction, to reproduce the copyrighted work and to prepare derivatives of that work, things that are based on the original creation. If somebody violates those, they'll be found to be an infringer under that same act. And so the ultimate question becomes, is this a derivative? Is this a reproduction? And if you go and you look at how Mr. Beast is presenting himself here, you see reference to the Squid Game itself, reference to 456 contestants that are in that Squid Game television show. Now, you can't copyright the concept of a death game that leads to certain results, but you can copyright your expression of that concept. And when it's reported on in various places, like here on your screen, Screen Rant, as reproduction, recreating, replicating, you start to get into a situation where copyright infringement is most definitely in play if Netflix isn't already involved. Now, that is a very facts and circumstances dependent test, and anybody that asks a question about copyright infringement can't know the answer definitively because it's about reading judges' or juries' minds, right? If we look at the Fourth Circuit, where North Carolina is located, and that appears to be where Mr. Beast is located, we're not quite sure where Squid Game is actually being built at this point in time, you see all sorts of weasel legal language that talks about extrinsic tests. They test to see if the two products contain substantially similar elements that are subject to copyright protection, as well as an intrinsic test looking at the total concept and feel of the two works based on the intended audience, which Mr. Beast's tweet would suggest is in fact folks that are already familiar with Squid Game. So the big problem here, if a client were sitting across the table from me asking this question, is yes, it might well be copyright infringement, which means if Netflix or whomever decided to sue, you're not going to have a lot of success getting that kicked out of court on some kind of early motion, which means you're potentially paying money into Netflix, into the legal system, to us very expensive lawyers. Now, I want to leave off with one other note, and that's the concept of largesse, right? People get confused about copyrights versus trademarks and think that a copyright holder has to defend their copyright in all instances. That's not true. Largesse comes into play. And when I say largesse, I don't mean large ass. I don't mean large S. I mean largesse, or as described here, the liberal giving as if to an inferior of someone that has the right to something. So Netflix has the right to enforce its copyright, but very often a copyright holder won't use that right if they think it's beneficial to them. And if you look at quotes that Netflix has put out there so far, you see a circumstance that Netflix clearly thinks is beneficial. This is in reference to Roblox and all sorts of infringing works, but the COO of Netflix says, and so you'll see it in other places, and people sending around TikTok videos, or they're doing their own sort of mini games in Roblox or things like that. I think that's great, and I think that we should celebrate that fandom. You've got a real chance here where Netflix could have an infringement claim, but probably wouldn't exercise it because it's otherwise a big advertisement for Squid Game. Thanks so much for having me, and please do check out Virtual Legality if you're interested in these topics. We like to talk about them a lot. Thanks again.
Thanks for that explanation, Richard. I couldn't have said it better myself. Literally, I couldn't have said that better myself. You clearly know a whole lot more than me in copyright law. So to echo what Richard just said, is Mr. Beast committing copyright infringement? Probably. But it is unlikely that Netflix is going to pursue any sort of legal action, nor should they. MrBeast is one of the most beloved creators on this app, and he is basically giving Squid Game millions and millions of dollars worth of free advertising. Now, it wouldn't be much fun if we stopped this analysis here, so I'm going to pose you the following hypothetical. How much money could Netflix recover if they decided to sue MrBeast for copyright infringement? And I know this is shocking, but the answer is, it depends. Under copyright law, there are three main types of damages you can recover: actual damages, profits of the infringer, and statutory damages. Now, here, actual damages probably are non-existent. In fact, it's probably the opposite. Like I said earlier, this is essentially a free advertisement for Squid Game. So in theory, Netflix probably will just get more downloads, more subscriptions, more views on the series. MrBeast's recreation is not a substitute for the show, so there probably actually aren't any actual damages. Next, profits of the infringer, and that might be a little hard to quantify. At the beginning of the video, MrBeast says he spent $3.5 million in the creation of this video. So then it begs the question, is MrBeast even going to make a profit on this video? And that very well might not be the case, but obviously it goes to help his brand in the future, because when you make a huge production like this, more people join your channel, more people consume your content that might be cheaper to make, and you make more money off of that content. So I'm not sure what a court would do in this instance on how they would categorize profit. Would it be just the gross revenue of the video, or would they factor into the account the expenses that MrBeast incurred in creating the video? And the final type of damage is statutory damage, which could be up to $150,000 per violation if a court finds that the infringement was willful. And I think there's a good argument that the infringement was willful. So it's just going to depend on how many copyright violations there are. For instance, if the replication of each individual game is considered a copyright infringement, if the use of 456 characters is a copyright infringement, if the use of the ball of money is considered a copyright infringement, that is $150,000 a pop. And you can see how that adds up. So yeah, you could see how things could get nasty between Netflix and MrBeast if Netflix decided to sue. And the final thing I want to talk about before we wrap up this video is credit. At the very end of MrBeast's video, he recognizes the creator of Squid Game. Does that give him a free pass? And the short answer to that is no. Just because you give somebody credit does not mean that you are exempt from copyright infringement. So I would go as far as to say, really, the only crime committed here is Jimmy not inviting me to be a participant in Squid Game. And it's cool. It's not like my feelings were hurt or anything. All right, y'all, that's it for today's video. Thanks again to Richard from Virtual Legality for doing all the heavy lifting in this video and educating me. His channel is linked down below. Make sure you give it a follow if you're more interested in this type of stuff. All right, y'all, my goal is always to make content worthy of your time. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye.
He's a catastrophic injury attorney who accidentally became a YouTuber. Attorney Tom.